Hello CIVO Cloud users, I am Laszlo from Gimlet.io, and in this video you are going to see how to create a gitops environment on CIVO Cloud using Gimlet's dashboard. So let's get started. What you see on the screen is my staging environment, and you can also see that it's backed by two distinct Git repositories, one for infrastructure components and one for applications. We are going to add a new environment. I'm just going to call it production. And by hitting create, I essentially created just an entry in the Gimlet's database, but to make it a real environment, I'm going to bootstrap a gitops environment in this one. I'm going to follow the naming convention of gitops environment name -infra and -apps with this environment too. And when I push the bootstrap gitops repository button, Gimlet is going to make a few API calls to GitHub and create a repository, or actually two, and put a bunch of YAMLs, resources, Kubernetes manifests into it. And it's also going to add Flux, our GitOps controllers resources in that repository. It is bootstrapped, and there's some guiding text on the screen right now. I have to clone the repository, and for the first time I have to start Flux manually with a kubectl apply command, and from that moment on the GitOps automation will take care of any YAML change in that repo. And for that I need a new Kubernetes cluster. I'm going to map this new cluster to my environment in Gimlet. You could use a namespace for this too, but in this case I am creating a new cluster. Let's call it production. I'm not going to make this my real production environment, so I'm going to have just a single node, but I like a powerful node just to make this demo swift. And I'm also very grateful to CIVO to give me some credit so I can make this demo. From the CIVO marketplace, I'm going to unselect the two default components, the metrics server and the traffic ingress controller, simply because Gimlet has tools to basically replicate this marketplace experience inside Gimlet, and it is backed by a Git repository. So compared to CIVO's marketplace, this is a GitOps solution for infrastructure component installation. All right, CIVO is fast with cluster creation, but not as fast as my clicking. So I'm just clicking over and start preparing this Flux GitOps controller bootstrap, or not bootstrap, kickstart. So as the text suggests, I am cloning the repository, and as step 2 I'm going to add a deploy key on GitHub for Flux, simply so it is able to access the repository. The deploy key is there, and as a last step I should apply on the cluster. Now, most likely the cluster is not fully ready yet, so I'm just jumping ahead a little and going to clone my apps repository as well, just to save some time. And I'm going to add the apps deploy key on GitHub. Yeah, this is just a read-only key, so Flux will not write anything into the repositories. All right, I don't need this anymore, and hopefully the cluster is up. Almost. I'm not seeing the download the kubeconfig button, but I'm hitting refresh and it's right here. So let me download this kubeconfig. It's CIVO production kubeconfig 1. So to access the cluster, I am going to export this variable to my downloads / CIVO production kubeconfig 1, and if I get the nodes, I have a node up and running since 37 seconds. So let's get all the pods as well from this cluster. The system components are not quite up yet, so let's just wait until they are. Here we go. We have all system pods up and running. So to finish the environment bootstrap, let me apply Flux on the cluster. So Flux is running, and let me just do the same for my application repository. Here I also need to export the kubeconfig. And just to make sure I'm looking at the same cluster. And at this point, there are two Git repositories Flux knows about. Here we go, yes, two Git repositories. One is for GitOps production apps, the other one is for infra. And I also have two customization resources, basically applying everything from these repositories. Cool. So I have this GitOps environment ready, and let me show you how to install new components. In the infrastructure components tab, there's a set of curated Kubernetes components. They are basically Helm charts. It's just that Gimlet and the Gimlet developers made them work together quite nicely, and they cherry-picked the important values for these Helm charts. I'm going to install Prometheus here. Simply on the UI, I'm just click enable. I could configure the retention, the persistence, and a few more things. And when I save the component list, what Gimlet actually does is that it commits into the GitOps repository, and I can just double check that. There was a commit just recently, and you can see that under Helm releases, there is Prometheus, and also Grafana is included, because there is not really you can do just with a single Prometheus. Dashboarding is cool, is better. And Gimlet also includes a set of useful dashboards for your environment. And what would you expect right now is that Flux applies everything, all these commits. So if I head back to the cluster and get the pods in all the namespaces, soon enough you will see Prometheus and Grafana pods popping up. So let's wait a bit. Here we go. Here we go, we have all the pods. Let's just double check. In the infrastructure namespace, everything is in running and all status indicators are up. So one final thing I'd like to show you in Gimlet is that besides you can install the Prometheus component and many others, you also get a one-pager guideline, like how to get started with that component. For Prometheus, to showcase Prometheus, I'm going to port forward Grafana so I can access it without an ingress endpoint and DNS entries, whatnot. And it says that at this point I should see Grafana running on my local host. You know, it's port forwarded from the CIVO cluster down to my laptop. And it also gives me a one-liner command to extract the password for Prometheus, or for Grafana, sorry. I am careful not to copy this last %sign here. And if I come here, the user is admin and the password is what I copied. Great. So we are inside Grafana, and we also have a few pre-made dashboards. Cluster is probably most likely the most important right now. We have a cluster with 4 cores, almost 8 gigs of memory, and we have CPU and other metrics here. You can browse the other dashboards as well, Kubernetes namespaces, VMs, whatnot. But basically what we just did is we bootstrapped a new environment called production with the bootstrapping process. 2 Git repositories were created by Gimlet. They were filled with Kubernetes manifests, and we installed additional infrastructure components here, all backed by a Git repository and running on CIVO Cloud. So thank you very much. I am going to make a few more of these videos and hope you are going to make good use of it on CIVO Cloud. So thank you.